Donald Glover has confirmed that he is working on his fourth and final Childish Gambino album or project. So at the Grammys, he won for Best Traditional R&B Performance for Redbone, and then afterwards he was asked about whether or not he would stand by what he had previously said about retiring Childish Gambino and working on something else. And he says, "I stand by that. I'm really appreciative of this. I'm making another project right now, but I like endings. I think they're important to progress. I think if a lot of things had death clauses in them, we wouldn't have a lot of problems in the world. To be honest, I think endings are good because they force things to get better." So some people are a little disheartened because they love Childish Gambino, and I think Awaken My Love was perhaps, I think probably my favorite album of Childish Gambino, although I really like Because the Internet as well. But I think it's interesting what he says about death clauses, and if things had more death clauses, perhaps we would have more progress. It's something I hadn't really considered before. God damn, that charming, smart man, Donald Glover.
He's so smart.
What do you think about death clauses? One, are you sad to see Childish Gambino go, or are you excited to see what's next? And what is something that you wish had a death clause in it?
I'm excited to see what's next, and no, like I'm not really sad about it. I think what he said is super interesting, and it made me realize that, like, yeah, I totally agree with this, and I think some of the best stuff they knew when to end.
Right.
Like whether it's like TV or movies or
and looking back, there were some things where you said, I wish they'd ended.
Yeah, that nothing's worse than something that goes on longer than it needs to be.
Yeah, something I wonder though is how will he reinvent himself? I think it's so important for an artist to reinvent themselves, and I think that I mean, look at the transition from like Freaks and Geeks, which was the first video I ever saw of Childish Gambino, Bonfire.
I didn't know he was in that.
Yeah, like do you remember?
Everyone was in that.
No, Freaks and Geeks like was a song.
Oh,
it was like his first song. It was basically a one shot of just him in like a warehouse or something. And I remember I was watching Community, and my friend was like, "This is the guy from Community," and I was like, "What? He's rapping?"
Yeah.
So we all went from that, like, oh, he can rap now, and he kind of had that chip on his shoulder proving that he could be a musician, to then undisputedly being like a force in the music world, especially with this most recent project. So now I wonder, is he just gonna change his name and do another rap name generator? I'm sure he won't. I wonder if he'll come back with like a full band or...
He's a modern day Renaissance man. And I think he's top 3 most talented artist alive today, just solely based on the fact of like, he has his hands in so many different things and he's so good at doing all of those things.
Yeah, and yet he somehow seems like a low-key person too, even though you know that he's juggling so much. Here's something that I wish had death clauses, which I would argue perhaps kind of do. Boy bands. Boy bands need a death clause because if they go on for too long, it just gets awkward for everybody.
Having an end in sight, I think it really helps your craft, whatever you're creating.
Let the boy bands have like 5 years. You get like 5 awesome years, and then at the end of that, they know that they're gonna break up. So then it's, because you know what happens with fans, like when NSYNC said they were going on a hiatus, I'm sure there's still fans out there that'll be like, any day they're coming back.
Yeah.
Any day, same with One Direction, where it's like, reunion.
Do you have any examples of things that had death clauses or like bands that ended it the right way? It's rare, right?
It never happens, Yeah, because sometimes they have these bitter breakups, and then perhaps in hindsight, it feels like that was the right time to break up. But like I think of like Oasis, like was that really a death clause? I don't know. I think of television shows as well. I remember in Tina Fey's book, Boss Lady, she talks about, I was gonna say Boss Baby.
Yeah, Boss Baby.
Her famous book, The Boss Baby. She talks about how she feels like most shows have about 7 seasons in them, and you need about 7 seasons to tell the stories that you need to tell, to explore different facets of every character, and usually that's like the sweet spot. Now I'm sure there are exceptions, but when you think of that 7-season rule for really good shows, a lot of them fall within that like 5 to 8 window.
Yeah, and the ones that keep going is like the last 4 seasons are just like, what is going on?
Then it becomes ER.
Yeah.
Like I recently started rewatching ER because I used to watch it when I was a kid because my dad bought all the DVD box sets and made my mom super mad. And we had
those are gonna be worth so much one day though, Grace.
I don't know where he keeps them. They're collectibles.
Yeah.
So we watched the first 5 seasons, and so I caught up on those on Hulu, and then I was like, wow, let's see what happens in like season like 6 through 8, and I was like, oh, mistakes were made, and that's the thing with death clauses.
Yeah, and it's a money thing that always, in the end, it catches up and it ruins it.
Though to an extent, I think that a lot of...
sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, to an extent, I think a lot of mainstream pop performers have death clauses in the form of like eras. So think of like Taylor Swift. There was the 1989 era, and then she comes back with Reputation, and she literally says the old Taylor can't come to the phone right now. Why? Because she's dead. Like, and they're like, and Madonna, she said it just like that. That's a great Taylor Swift impression. But Madonna does the same thing as well. Like where Madonna will reinvent herself, but she retains the same identity. So I think there is some stuff that I've seen on the internet where they're like, why does Childish Gambino need to die? Can't you just kill off this iteration of him and come back with another Childish Gambino project that is totally different? Because an argument could be made that no matter what Donald Glover does, he will, like he's always gonna be Childish Gambino to a lot of people.
He's always gonna be doing music. It's not one of those things that you can just stop doing when you're that talented at it.
Yeah.
But I think he just wants to focus on other things. Like he's working on so many things at once right now that he's trying to figure out what the next chapter is for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably like, look, I got my Grammy. I'm 2 out of 4 of the way to an EGOT.
He got a bunch of Golden Globes too, right? Or was it Emmys?
No, he's got, so he's on his way to an EGOT, which means that he needs, he has a Grammy, he has an Emmy, he needs a Tony and an Oscar.
Okay.
That's the EGOT. Whoopi Goldberg is like the goat of the EGOT.
Interesting. She got a Grammy?
Yeah, for like, I think for like a comedy album or something, right? You don't realize, like she's just sitting at the desk of The View and we don't realize, I mean, I don't think we understand enough how much of a living legend Whoopi Goldberg is. She's just the greatest. And that was a weird segue to end this, but hey, in the comment section below, let us know what you think of Whoopi Goldberg and also Childish Gambino. And are you sad that he might be retiring or that he is retiring the moniker Childish Gambino? What are you looking forward to in his next project? Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and we will see you next time on Pop Trigger.